All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Graham Schmidt. I'm the Artistic Director of Break and Spring Theater, and extremely proud and happy to be here this evening after such a fantastic production. I'd like to introduce two people before the cast join us on the stage who are quickly getting dressed back in the dressing room. The first is a person to whom we all, I think, owe a great debt of gratitude, the mastermind of this production, somebody who's been working on it since the fall of 2011. That's director Liz Fisher. The second is our honored guest and someone who has made a great commitment to the works of Maksym Kurochkin, as well as to the cause of disseminating, celebrating, investigating new Russian drama in the United States, and that's that's John J. Hamlin, our translator. Thank you so much for being here. So first, I'd just like to invite you, John, if you could, share with us your impressions, your reaction. I mean, this is a text that you've lived with for quite a while, but to this production here, if you would.
Well, the big thing to say is that this is the one play that Maksym wrote that has not a single stage direction in it. It's all dialogue. So it's an invitation to a director, but I've never seen, I never imagined that a director would do this much with the text. So all the action that you saw up there, all the things that the actors did and interacted, that was all created by Liz, and I assume some collaboration with the actors. But Liz really deserves great honor for taking this thing on the page and turning it into a full vision. So I was wowed by all three characters and the way that they manifested the forces. I feel like you could feel them manifesting the force of vodka and television and that other one. That you could really, because that's what the whole conceit of the play is that these are not supposed to be people, they're supposed to be forces out there on the stage, and I felt like the relationship between them and the hero made it clear how they impacted his life. Yeah.
Well, before we open it up to the audience, and since you're here, I'd like to ask a couple more questions. One is something that came up just the other night. It's stated at the beginning of the play that the author is not represented by the hero in this play. And I think you've probably spent the most amount of time with Maksym, who I hope is actually, and I'm quite confident is still watching. Привет, Maksym. But I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about the compare and contrast what we see here, Noel Gallen's hero, his portrayal, and the man, the myth, Maksym Kurochkin.
We should turn off the camera. I think that I wouldn't call it an alter ego, but I think that the hero is a sort of synthesis of Max at moments in his life, plus a type of Russian man of his generation that he has seen a lot of. Max has a lot of contemporary friends who've kind of gone through the history of the Soviet Union and just grown up together. And it is a very particular generation that fate put between those legs, let's say, of the camel. And yeah, so that's why I think he draws it from. We talked about how he's called the hero, possibly in reference to Lermontov's novel, A Hero of Our Time, from the 1830s, and that the hero there, Pechorn, is supposed to represent a certain type from that generation. And I think in the same way the hero is not Max, it's people in that generation.
And here comes our lovely guest.
Jude's behind us, so he'll have to sit in the hot seat.
Okay. Yeah. Jude's on his way up, but if you guys would introduce yourselves really quickly, please.
I'm Adrian Schmidt.
I'm Joey Hood.
Noel Gallen.
Hi.
Jude Hickey is on his way.
Yes, he's on his way.
All right. There we
You
go.
got an important conference call?
Oh, is it?
It's not true.
Well, and one more question I have for you, John. This is something that we talked about a little bit, because you had been reading your translation on the plane. You, myself, and technology director Robert Matney, as well as Liz, had an opportunity to meet today. And one thing that came up was how this play does or does not fit into the tradition of Russian playwriting, Russian literature, that is, more broadly. I wonder if you might speak to that.
Well, it was John Friedman, hi John, in Moscow, who pointed out the connection between the title, A Hero of Our Time, and the hero in this play. So I think that's part of it, to make that link, that this is supposed to be a representative work for a whole generation. But beyond that, I think that there's a kind of figure in Russian literature who's the sensualist, who is tormented in the aftermath of what he does, and that goes back at least to Dostoevsky, and Russia is both a great Orthodox Christian nation and a great vodka drinking nation, and a wintry nation. And I think that combination makes for characters who move back and forth between indulging their sensuality in big, big ways through the winter, the long winter, and then waking up in the spring, even the spring of a day, the morning, the dawn, and having, the light come through the church windows that they grew up with, making them wring their hands and swear that that is it. Yeah.
It's the last time.
That's the last time.
Until next year.
That's right. Till tonight.
Well, at this point, I'd like to ask anybody in the audience, this is a play that originally found resonance in Russia, in Moscow, contemporary Moscow. And I wondered if you might say, one, if you have any reactions to this production, but also I wonder how accessible it felt. That was, of course, the idea was to produce it here for y'all. But any reaction?
When was the play set?
When was it set? I believe 2003.
That's when it came out. Yeah.
Well, he was 33 years old and he was born in 1970.
So there's
Wow.
Jude Hickey.
Jude, we saved a seat for you.
Right there?
Should we all sit?
I actually have a question, something a little bit different for you, Graham. You've translated plays before. So when you get a play that you probably have read in Russian, I assume, and then you get a translation, do you get the itch to change things, or do you just leave it as is?
I actually was pretty, not to say hands off with this. This process was really driven by Liz, and there was a we have a select, thanks to what was called the New Voices, New Visions Initiative, that was conducted by an organization called the Center for International Theater Development, led by Philip Arnaud, directed by John Friedman. There are about 29 plays that have been written about over the past 10 years from a movement in Russia called New Russian Drama. And we have access to translations from a range of translators from about 14 different playwrighs. Everybody in the United States has free access to these translations. We've really been mining them here at Breaking Street Theater. I'll say I find John's translations to be superior. I don't go back and check the original Russian because when you read something and it reads as smoothly and beautifully as John's do, then you don't. I have no urge to check. I would be disappointed to find that any correction need to be made. They're all improvements. So I don't know, Liz, what was your experience in? This is a script that you discovered and you were interested in
Absolutely.
staging?
Well, this whole sort of process came about as a result of a lot of this past year's New Russian Drama Festival. We were highlighting Max's work. Graham was directing a full production of his play, The Schooling of Bento Banchev. And similarly to what we did for the first year, we wanted to have a number of staged readings, and Graham had asked me if I wanted to direct one. So I started reading all of Max's plays that we have translations of, because I don't speak a lick of Russian, not at all. I'm not ashamed to say. So, and this was one, I mean, just from the title alone and the little synopsis, which we have copies of, I found that was very interesting, and I started reading the translation and was really impressed with it. Thought that it read really sort of cleanly, and it had a lot of humor. It was very accessible for an American audience, and also as a bonus would make for a very easy to do staged reading. And just on the merits of that alone, put together a cast. Noel and Adrian, which were a part of that original cast for the staged reading, did it when Max and John were actually over, John Friedman, were over for the New Russian Drama Festival, and people really enjoyed it and found it to be a very funny, very entertaining text. So we decided, Graham asked if we'd like to do it as a full production, and said absolutely, yes please. So here we are today.
Are there things, because of the differences in the cultures, that were hard to do that couldn't translate in something that maybe American audiences wouldn't understand because of the cultural differences?
Even the poet, for example. The role of the poet in Russian society, whereas as we sit
As
here
opposed to
and go,
America.
it's not like a poet that we would recognize and we would know the poetry.
You mean
And
the
I'm
poet
gonna,
that they read?
I'm gonna segue on top of his question,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm thinking of something similar. I'm thinking of the title. I'm thinking about the word bucket in English,
Yeah.
and how that F word has so many uses and variations, and I'm just wondering what the Russian word, is it a word that also is used as a curse word and an adjective and an adverb?
It's just something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the roots, there are kind of 4 roots of Russian profanity, and they all have to do with sex. I'll let you use your imagination for what the other ones are. And those roots get into the middle of all sorts of words. And so the word yebat is to fuck in Russian, and it just shows up as the root, and then there's prefixes and suffixes for anything. So you can do anything in a sort of fucking style.
Like in English, the same word then.
Yes, but there's also a lot of the word hui, which is dick, and that shows up, and like if you try to translate that as like literally, it doesn't work, and so we have to use fuck instead.
Right.
In that expression. So there's a lot of sort of manipulation because they're so creative with the making of words that have these profane bases to them. And actually the English language is fairly limited by comparison.
Wow. Since we're on this topic, I just,
Yeah.
it's what's difficult sometimes too. It's like there are different forms of speech. For example, the word pizdets, which means pussy, is actually a verb. So in Russian, you can wow, you pizdi, but it's like I'm sorry.
My dad's here tonight, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, it's a point of culture. So
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, then there's another one.
Well, it's okay, I was gonna say that. I was gonna, I'm an educator, and I was gonna, on Facebook say, hey, there's a live stream on my first, I was just about to hit post, and I put the link in it, it had the title of the play, and I thought, the dean is on my Facebook page. I don't think I'm gonna post this, because there is that thing about the language, I'm sorry, but I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, and look on your marquee.
I mean,
out
you
here.
put you've got F, you don't have the.
It's the same with me. I didn't do any promotional stuff on Facebook with the whole word, simply because I got so much family.
Right.
I just don't think I have
It was a little
you know.
problematic. But
That's interesting. I understand that.
if the people doing the reviews had reviewed it that way, instead of the word F, or had put F You know, then
I'm not nearly as
I wanted to say,
Facebook
just-
profile.
Myself and Rob are kind of, Robert Manny kind of pilot there he is over there. He coordinated this entire last year event. But just from our experience, we kind of are in the driver's seats of the Breaking String Theater promotional machine, and which includes Facebook, our Facebook page. And when we first used the word fuck, I think it was probably in June, and we have people that came to see our production of Ghosts here, which was kind of, classic Russian theater. And we have roots in Chekhov and stuff. And when we first used it, within a week, we lost like 20 people that unliked us. But since then, we've gained, we've gained about 70. So I want to say,
Kind of proves the point of the
well,
play.
well,
I think it's
and
just,
y'all are artists, and you get
well,
away with it.
it's probably just a certain demographic is falling away
Yeah.
a little bit, and a different one is taking its place.
I just want to point out that just now, John Friedman, who's the editor for the Moscow Times, just posted John J. Hanlon and Graham Schmidt currently, seriously, almost, discussing the 4 roots of Russian obscenities. How can you miss this? Also, Maria Krupnik, also in Russia, compliments for just waving to John and to Max. So we're having live chat here.
So, we have time for one more comment or question. Anybody from the audience? I'll pose it. One question that just came up, actually came up in a radio interview with Noel, and we had John here, and I wondered if you might speak to this. Just what did it mean to kind of embody the Russianness of this play too? Was that something you strove after? And yeah, I wonder if you might speak to that as the hero.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
To embody the Russianness. Yeah. Vodka, number 1. Number 2, I think it's a speed of thought that it's really fascinated with. And this duality of like tragedy and comedy. And that the comedy is right there. It's under the surface. And also, the intelligence there, like, there's so many themes, there's so much, it's so rich, it's so dense. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try to make it accessible. It's me. It's still me. I'm not Russian, but I am, I don't know. We're still in Austin. It's everything. It's human. So, I'm not doing an accent, so I'm not trying to be Russian. So that's an interesting question. Yeah.
Well, John, can I invite you to have the last word?
What do you want me to say?
Can I ask one more little question of the actors? I'm just wondering what it's like, those of you, the 3 of you who are being forced rather than a character, since you traditionally are a character, you can even make up a little backstory, and you can really create the character. What is the difference in all of a sudden thinking, I'm just television, or I'm just vodka, or fucking?
You first.
Me first.
Logistically speaking, there is no difference because the way I would approach a character, the way I would approach Masha, or whatever, Medea would be the same way, which is to live and breathe with the other characters on the stage. So logistically, it's the same because it's even easier because we have full permission to move, live, breathe with him. It's kind of great too because we can just kind of listen to him and ride that kinesthetic response. But in terms of fucking, it's tricky. Yeah. And it is because it's tricky to talk about too because I come off a little bit, I think, like snooty when I talk about it because I want to make sure that when I'm talking about it, people that I'm talking to know that I'm smart, which is, I think, natural. So it's tricky because it's very harmful to play the caricature, and yet that's kind of what it's all about, the harmfulness of the character. So it's a balance. I think I think it does take a little bit of finesse, and to be completely honest, it's been a little trial and error, right? Like one night fucking is off the wall sex, and another night she's very stern and touchy and intellectual. So.
Well, it's interesting because you brought it up. It's like, what does fucking mean? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as the hero, every night I drink vodka, I watch TV, but do I fuck?
The internet is blowing up right now.
No,
Masturbation seems to be.
Yeah.
So I mean that.
But that's my question.
Yeah.
You know,
And the other thing that's tricky about yours is that, as it turns out, in the end, she's not fucking.
Right, which we have
Why?
discussed in a talk back,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
very interesting to me. Yeah.
So she has to kind of fool the audience for a while there, and then.
That was a nice touch. Was that you or was
No,
that the playwright?
that's the whole
Oh,
genius.
man, that was nice.
That's the whole genius of the play, I think.
And so I was getting there, and it's so important. We haven't yet talked about that at a talk back, which I was kind of surprised and at the same time relieved. But it kind of adds that layer of like it can't just be the one note caricature because it never is that. It never was that. It never, So there's always that layer. Joey?
We had if I may cut in just for a second on that note, we had a quick discussion up here about what fucking is as opposed to the wife. And you bring up the intellectualness of the wife playing the part of fucking, and it came to an agreement up here that it was actually fucking's way to make sure that she doesn't get kicked out by saying that
It's
all of these
acceptable.
things aren't fucking, so therefore she doesn't go. So maybe now she's not even the wife. She's just smarter than everybody else.
that's right.
She also has the line early on that says nobody in their right mind would give a fucking.
Yeah.
He's kind of got a point there too. What a card to play up. Did I say that out loud?
That one's rolled.
Isn't the line voluntarily? Somehow that like makes the line even better. I like that.
But you are actually right. That's one of the things that we had sort of come to as we were working on, realizing that, well, of course everyone gets to stay because this problem were all three of you. And he refers to this several times. I can't live with all three of you. So when she is no longer fucking, there's only two of them. So of course everyone gets to stay.
Nice play.
So in a way, she kind of saves them all. So maybe we could say fucking is selfless?
Or he does it the whole time. I mean, lately I've been, like I never
Or
thought like,
universal.
what if? It's like lately I've been thinking, like he's the one from the get-go he's the god of his own trajectory reality, right? He creates his own reality. So what if the whole time he really is the hero? He's created this whole thing,
Right.
to be as such.
Right. Well, that's sort of the way
That's where it gets yummy, right?
directed it too. Was like at the end of the day, he's there with the laptop,
Yeah.
right? And he's just
Yep.
looked and oh my God, where did that whole day go?
Yep.
Either he spent it in his imagination fighting this thing out, or he wrote the play.
Right.
That in his imagination he's the hero fighting this whole thing out, right?
Yes.
And the day's still here, right?
Absolutely.
Well, all right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to, since he's probably watching, I hope he's watching, thank Maksym Kurochkin for running the public. I want to especially thank John J. Hanlon for making it accessible for audiences here in Austin and for being here with us. Thank you. I invite all to continue this conversation and we'll end it on the stage right now. Thank you.